Do you manage a team of software developers, or do you work with an external agency? There is one mistake I've seen companies, business owners, and managers do all over again. So the mistake is what I'm going to talk about in this video. So I'll show you how you can avoid this one mistake to save your software project. Before I tell you what the mistake is, I'll tell you a little more about these 5 companies that we are going to talk about and what's their story. All right, so the company number 1 and how they wasted their budget. Company number 2, they didn't have access to their own code. Company number 3, they couldn't figure out how to develop a product market fit ready minimum viable product. Company number 4, their developers started cheating on them. And company number 5, no documentation, which led to developers resisting to cooperate. Okay, so let's start with the company number 1. A business owner invested about 40,000 euros to start a company, only to figure out they wasted the whole budget on branding and almost static website. So their external agency apparently noticed they know pretty much nothing about software development and misused the situation. This is not the situation I want you guys to be at. The company number 2, nobody in the company had access to their software code. The director eventually couldn't fire the software developer because he was the only one who had access to the code. And, for 2 years, the developer was underperforming and still just getting his salary. So, again, you don't want to be in this position when someone misuses the situation. Company number 3, they have invested about 300,000 euros in software development to build a booking engine and a website. So backend and frontend, relatively easy website at first glance. And after this investment, and eventually 2 years later, they still were not live. And I was like, oh my God, how is this possible? Well, it was because they didn't know how to build an MVP, and they didn't know how to iterate, what is actually iterative software development. So this is something I usually bring on board. And they paid, unfortunately, excessive amount for just graphical design, for some templates and graphics that was not even needed, right? Company number 4, a non-technical founder engaged remote software developers, only to realize a year later those developers worked only 20% out of those 100% of the time they paid them. So really, really unfortunate. And again, it was because the founder didn't know how to validate if they are working or not. There was no transparency whatsoever. Company number 5, a CTO was not satisfied with his team's performance, but couldn't let them go because there was no documentation in place, no knowledge base, no automated deployments in place, and they resisted onboarding a new joiner. The software developers resisted onboarding a new colleague because, the person could possibly replace them. So again, they had a very comfortable, great position, but very unfortunate for the manager, for the director, for the CTO. Okay, and here is the pattern I see all over again. Step by step, I'll show you how it usually works and then how you can do better. So at the beginning, and what you can see is a timeline, right? So satisfaction and timeline. So when the project starts, everyone is excited, it all is great, the founder, manager, business owner thinks, hey, guys are working hard, it's great, let's do it, everyone is excited. And then as time progresses, months pass, the business people are even more excited because the launch is coming soon. So, they say, we are going to release soon, we are so excited, everything is great. Then they go live, they discover a few issues here and there, but no big deal, it's expected. I mean, software is usually buggy, so no big deal. But then it starts going downhill. Because they say, hey, wait, the software doesn't work work as expected. There are way too many issues, production issues, serious problems with scalability or security or onboarding new joiners, or they cannot just get the code from the agency. So it's all messy. And this results to frustration and anger piling up, people being fired. I've seen this often, whether it is the VP of engineering or a team in an external agency, or they just stop working with the agency at all. Projects get suspended, and in the worst case, investments were also written off. So you don't want to be in this situation, right? Now, obviously, there is a better way to develop software. The better way is involving a technical consultant, someone who would be on your side, someone who would be pulling the same string as you are. So again, we are looking at the timeline, satisfaction and time on the two axes, where the technical person can just, in the early stage, look at the code your agency or your team produces, just look at it and think, hey, let me look over developers' shoulders so I can make sure that the best practices are in place. And the best practices you can see on the right side. So for example, are the team members somehow equalized, like seniors and juniors? Do they have proper incentives? You as a business owner, as a manager, you want to release quickly. For them, if they charge you on a daily basis, well, why would they want to release quickly, right? Make sure that code repositories are transparent, or CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration, continuous deployment, DevOps setup, cloud. As you can see it all on the right side, right? So all these things should be done properly, or at least with some best practices in mind. So now the technical person can foresee issues. So for example, if some of the best practices are not met, as I mentioned a while ago, you can foresee that, say, in a year, this will make problems or troubles. So you can just shout out like, hey, heads up everyone, I see some possible issues, and we can prepare some corrective measures. So we can think it through, we can fix it. So, even though the satisfaction decreases temporarily, it will get back soon again. So the corrective measures could be, for example, adopting some of the best practices that are missing, or engaging interim CTO, or engaging a senior software architect, or performing stricter code reviews. Maybe there are just junior developers. Maybe you need one more senior who would offset their seniority or juniority. Improving shared knowledge base. If you don't have any knowledge base, if you cannot onboard new joiners, this is a problem. Using cloud, DevOps, Agile, like these are all standard best practices these days, and we can just quickly spot if it is in place or not. So as soon as the corrective measures are introduced, we can see the satisfaction going up again. Okay, so this is an example of an assessment we did just recently. You can see it on the right side of the screen. Usually we look at 10 areas during the assessment, during an audit, because sometimes you can spend just half an hour looking at the code and you immediately see that it doesn't use, any testing scenarios, right? So we look at the quality of the code, we look at the use of software frameworks, we look at documentation and knowledge base, deployment processes, we look at the DevOps architecture, security, data ownership, and access rights, etc. Like it's not any, it's not any rocket science, but as soon as you follow some simple checklist, it's also not difficult. And you can see on the right side, as I mentioned, a sample of the takeaways and recommended steps based on our recent assessment. So obviously the assessment was long, like 25 page long document that we've compiled over a few days with screenshots and with issues found. And then based on all this, we recommend next steps. So maybe part of it needs to be rewritten, or maybe the team is not senior enough, or, there could be different recommendations. Okay, so this is the one mistake. The one mistake you guys should avoid to save your projects. The mistake is not engaging a technical lead or a senior software architect who would objectively assess the quality of the code, of the software, of your project, and eventually be on your side when you are working with an external agency. So this is the mistake. Like all those 5 companies I showed you at the beginning, they could have succeeded in their efforts if only they would work with someone, like some consultant or software architect or someone, maybe they could hire someone internal to make sure that these best practices are in place. Okay, so if you would like us, so my colleagues and me, to look at your projects, if you would like to just assess the quality of the code your developers, your in-house team, or your agency produces, we would be really glad to look under the hood of your project or company. So you can just click the link that you can see below this video and schedule a call with me where we discuss how it all could work. So this is a free strategy call. I'll tell you a little more about the assessment, about the areas, what to look for, how to make sure that developers don't cheat on you or you don't overpay, for example, for the graphical design, etc. All right. So if you'd like us to look at your code and give you some objective assessment, just click the link below this video, and I'm looking forward to talking to you.